Hi, I was just wondering what would be the advantages of taking a game development course rather than computer science?
That's okay, awesome good question. Game development courses are geared towards games, and you will do different things. So I suppose a quick run through of my first 4 years. We started out learning C++, and we'd been making really simple text-based games like Blackjack, stuff like that. Now that's not going to make a huge difference to if you're doing a generic course, you'll just make a banking system or something. But then when it comes into sort of second year and you start being able to do graphical programming, you focus a lot more on stuff like XNA and C# that'll let you throw together 3D stuff really quickly. So you'll be focusing on games. You'll be focusing on some languages like I did Ruby, I think you did Python when it came to your year, which are in demand from the games companies I've seen around Dublin at the moment. So they are geared towards games. Now, like if you go and you get a generic software development degree, reskilling to work in a games company is not going to take you very long. You know what I mean? Couple of months, maybe a little bit longer, and you'll have a good handle on different languages. But courses are starting to use. I know the course. I was dealing a bit with the course down in Thurles, in Limerick IT down in Thurles, and they've started to do a mobile development module. So I think they're using Java, and they're actually putting the games on Android phones and Windows phones as well with C#. So you do get to make games, and you get to test them on a phone, which you probably wouldn't get to do in a generic course. Again, if you do a generic course, it's not exactly precluding you from working in the games industry. But if you had a choice, I'd take the games course.
Yeah, just further to that, because I did a generic course. I did computer applications in DCU, which at the time had a great reputation, probably as the best computer course in the country, which is one of the reasons I did it. But also there wasn't really any games courses around when I was going into college. I think if there was, I definitely would have done that. And I'm quite jealous when I talk to people coming out of college now who have done game-specific courses, because they've done all of the stuff I really want to know about and I really wanted to learn, but just wasn't available to me at that stage. I consider myself an extremely good programmer, but not necessarily an extremely good games programmer. So I think that's maybe the difference there. I can write code for a game, but probably not as well as the two people beside me.
Just to mention, like when I finished the course in Carlow, as I said, we went to the competition in Scotland, and we started building a 3D sports game a week after I graduated from Carlow. Like I didn't even know if I had a degree yet. So we went straight from college to literally, I think it was a week or 10 days or something, building a 3D game using Ogre, I think, an engine, and PhysX as the physics engine. If it was a generic course, we couldn't have done that. There would have been reskilling involved. But because it was a games course, we'd used Ogre before with PhysX, and we just made the transition straight away.
How long does it take to fix a game?
Well, that depends on the type of problem you come across. There's some things that can end up having to change a huge amount of code. There's dependencies usually when you do something. Okay. You could find that when you're trying to fix a menu, you accidentally would change everything the menu relates to. So you'd have to do work on everything that menu relates to, so you can make a very small change. It really just depends on the type of bug it is.
I've had bugs that look really simple and have taken me 3 or 4 days to fix, and then I've had stuff that looks incredibly complex and fixed in about 20 seconds.
What software would you use, or how would you make a game?
I'll start, I suppose. In college, the course was sponsored by Microsoft, so we used a lot of the Microsoft software. So as a programmer, we're using Visual Studio, and then it depends what platform you're aiming at. So in Nevermind games, we were using an engine called Marmalade, which is a third-party engine, to make iOS games. If you're a designer, or if you're looking at the art side of it, you'd be using stuff like Photoshop for 2D stuff, and 3D Studio Max for 3D stuff. So greatly depends on what you're aiming at, but Adobe would feature heavily, or certainly did for us, on the art side, and then we used a lot of Microsoft tech and then some third-party tech as programmers.
If you're aiming for the for iOS, you're going to need a Mac though to use Xcode. So Apple always you have to use their own products to do things. So everything that you'd learn for the Microsoft, you'd have to relearn on a different development kit.
Unless you use Marmalade.
Unless you use Marmalade.
How long does it take to actually like make a game from start to finish?
Depends on the game, right?
Yeah, we were making. We released 2 games for Windows Phone 7. One of them was called Solar Sprint, which we wrote all of the code for and did all of the art for in just under 2 weeks. Because we said we could make a game for Windows Phone in 2 weeks, and someone said, I bet you can't. So we did. We also made Troublesome for iOS, which took a couple of months. Even though, it's a bigger game in some ways, and we were held up by a publisher as well, so that really, shouldn't come into play, I suppose. But, Solar Sprint, really simple game, built in 2 weeks. Troublesome, less simple game, built in 3 or 4 months, I suppose, if you take the whole development cycle. Bigger games, you'll go all the way up. I mean, there's games that were in development, a year and a half, 2 years, if you're looking at the really big games. I don't know what you guys would be different.
Yeah, it's kind of the same. It depends on the game, and I suppose how good or bad you want the game to be. The more time you spend on it, it's going to be a better game. And one of the things we did early on, after our first game did so well, and was a trivia game, we figured it'd be. We figured we were really, really good at this, and we'd make a word game that'd do really well as well. And rather than actually sitting down and thinking about exactly what we wanted to build, we threw together this game in about 2 weeks that we thought was great, and we were like, oh, we're after making like the best game ever here. We're going to be rich. And we released it, and I think to date it's probably sold about 100 copies. It shouldn't have sold more than 100 copies because it's junk. And when I look back at it now, I can see, 2 weeks is not enough time to throw together a good game at all. The concepts and stuff were okay, but it requires more than that. You can throw something together. I made a game in flight home from Australia one time, but again, it's not a good game. The likes of Deal or No Deal that we have out at the moment is about 6 to 7 months worth of development.
And there are competitions to make games within a day, aren't
There's
there?
global game jams and stuff like that where you have to make a game over a weekend, so you stay up for 48 hours straight and make a game. The production quality is terrible. But 1 or 2 of them I think have been actually released into the wild. Now I'm guessing they sold about 8 copies because there's usually about 8 team members. But it's possible to make a crap game very, very quickly. If you want production quality, which certainly on mobile platforms you need incredibly high production quality to get anywhere, then you need to be spending months on it, definitely.
How many years in college do you have to do before you get into this?
I did a PLC in Liberties in TV and radio, but I ended up I worked in radio for about 5 years and then moved across to print journalism. So what I did in college doesn't really relate to what I do day to day. But with you guys, it's different, I guess.
I suppose I did the degree course in Carlos, so that's an honours degree, which is 4 years. I'm currently doing a postgrad. Once you do one degree, postgrads are great because you can do essentially another level 8 in about 9 months. So my first game development one, that takes 4 years, and your first one, if you want to do an honours degree, will take 4 years. After that, you can do postgrads, which are much, much shorter because they expect you to learn faster, I suppose. But 4 years is the first course.
I done the same course as Mark, but I left after the level 7, so after 3 years, graduated with that. But a lot of the people in my office, or the senior programmers, would have done the 4 years honours course and then an extra year masters.
Yeah, I did a 4-year degree as well, but my degree wasn't in gaming, so it was a couple of years after that I actually got into gaming just by myself, taught myself how to make games.
Do you get a lot of opportunities to travel, which is our work?
Good question. I do.
Yeah, I bet you.
What's your name, man?
Lee Clary.
Lee Clary. Lee, I don't make that much money, but the perks for being a journalist in certain areas are really good. I've been to San Francisco for a spring showcase of Xbox games, to London a bunch of times for games events, and Paris for the launch of Heavy Rain, and Bordeaux for interviews with the developers of the last Pixar game. I know other people have been to Tokyo and Seattle, where the Halo developers are, and different parts of the world. Someone I know went to Jordan for the launch of Uncharted 3. So there can be huge opportunities. There's game events, industry events around the world, like Germany and the States and stuff?
Yeah, I definitely travelled a lot with Nevermind Games. It was more for networking and meeting people. So I was CEO of Nevermind Games. So we went to London for Eurogamer. Two of us were at Eurogamer, so that was good fun. Then we went to San Francisco for an ITLG event out there. Met some great people out there. Then more recently went to LA for a Sony event. So that was good. But the people you meet out there, like the last time when I was out in LA, I met Dylan Collins, Fight My Monster, stuff like that. So getting invited from these people really helps. So yeah, got to travel a lot.
Are you working on a game at the moment?
Yeah, we're working on. So one of the things that we think is going to be massive is games that are on your phone or your iPad or tablet that you actually play on your TV. So we have 2 games that we should be launching before Christmas. That one of them is a quiz game where you can have up to 15 people in the same room using their iPhones as the controller, but the game actually plays out on your TV. And then another one is similar to that, but it's a drawing-based game, kind of like Pictionary. So one person is drawing on the iPad, whatever they're drawing is coming up on the TV, and then you've got 15 people with buzzers able to jump in when they think they know what you're drawing. So there are our 2 main things at the moment in Redwind.
I'm currently working on a game called Stars. It's a game for iOS, so for your iPod, iPhone, and iPad. They're also getting brought to the Kindle Fire soon, so that's really time management, collection. You build your own mall, you stock it, you invite people to it, that kind of stuff.
I was working on a game when I left Nevermind Games. Can't talk about it unfortunately, but if you follow them, you'll probably hear news on it shortly enough. But since then, no, I'm a student again.
Great.
Do you need TG for TG and Leaving Cert?
Do you need to do your Leaving Cert?
Technical graphics.
Tech graphics.
I don't know.
I can see how it would help. I did it up to my junior cert. And like if you want to be an engineer, tech graphics is definitely important. For being a software developer, in some ways I can see how it would be important, because when you're making 3D games, sort of visualizing how everything is going on can be quite important. And, so I can see in that respect how it would help. You don't need it. Again, it's kind of like physics. You don't need it. You're going to learn some of the stuff anyway. Although physics will be more helpful. So it definitely won't hurt your chances. But I wouldn't say you need it by any means.